What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Great Lakes Outdoors podcast. We got Alyx tonight again, thankfully. How you doing, Alyx?
Good, man. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Kind of happy but sad that the season's finished on us, so don't really know what to do with my life. We just started redoing the whole goose trailer and stuff, but driving myself up the wall, not going after something right now.
Yep. I just got done reorganizing my garage and putting all the waterfall stuff away for the year, and man, I'm depressed. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's a tough time of year, that's for sure. But today we got Eric with Firebolt Game Calls. Eric, how are you doing tonight?
Very well, guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you coming on. We tried to do it last night, and I apologize. I just got one of your turkey calls from one of our friends, and the thing was absolutely awesome. And I was like, well, would be a perfect guest for the podcast with turkey season coming up as well.
I appreciate the kind words. That means a lot. The personalized calls, I don't know if, Kyle, you want to describe it a little bit, but the personalized calls mean a lot to me when somebody asks me to do them, just the fact that somebody took the time to ask me to do something like that for somebody. So
yeah,
you want to talk about what it looks like?
Yeah, so we got, you handpicked the striker, I want to say. It's a slate call, a glass call, I guess, right?
It is a glass call with your photo in it. From
my turkey from last year, which was a, pretty sentimental bird. First double band for me. So obviously grateful that Mike, asked you about that and you were able to do that for me. But yeah, absolutely beautiful call. Beautiful call. And like I said, going through and getting to know your company is like one of those no-brainers to have you on one of the shows.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, I mean, when somebody asks me to do something like that for something so special, it means a lot to me. It means more than any dollar number you can put on a call.
No, for sure.
But it's a pretty unique thing to do for somebody. And it's something that, people say, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. I don't want to use it. And that's not why I build calls. I build calls so that they're used.
I'm not going to lie. That was the first thing I told Mike when I called him after. I was like, dude, I don't even know if I want to use this right now. You got to kill at least one with it and then you can hang it up. I'm like, all right, that's fine. I just don't want to my face is bad enough as it is, so I don't want to mess up my face on that picture anymore. That's the hard part.
Well, that is the hard part of the glass call too. Is you want to see the picture and the image and the story behind the image and everything like that. And then for a glass call, anybody that's ever turkey hunted knows you got to scratch that surface up because you can't run a striker on straight glass.
Right.
So once you start scuffing it up, you're messing with that image, but. Only the people that really matter in the whole story will know the story behind the call. So that's what's cool about it to me is taking somebody's memory and putting it in a call like that that can be used for as many or as few seasons that the person wants to use them for.
Right.
But I do make calls for them to be used.
What before we get too far, because like we were talking beforehand, we'll get down a rabbit hole real quick.
Sure.
What can you just explain to everybody that hasn't heard of your company or your calls? Explain one, I guess, who you are and your calls or the calls that you make.
Sure. Name of the business is Firebolt Game Calls. My name is Eric Witzel. If you want to look me up, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I think it's 8 different species of calls, and in total, I think I'm up to somewhere between 25 and 30 different calls that I make because of the different lines of the calls that I have. I have a standard line. Let me go back a little bit too. I'm from Berea, Ohio. So all you Michiganders up there up north, that state up north, I'm sorry, but I am from Ohio. And
I was going to say, I'll
lose customers because I'm from Ohio.
We're going to end the podcast on that one right there. No. We beat you guys in football, so that's all that matters. That's all I care about. This year's going to be a little tougher, but we'll see what happens.
All right. But yeah, I make crow, coyote, elk, deer, turkey, duck, goose, owl calls for locating turkeys.
Oh, wow.
I make all those, and then I make different lines of each of those calls. So the first line is what I call the standard line, and it's pretty much domestic wood, about as plain as you can get. Basically, the way I categorize it is that's the hardworking guy who just wants a good sounding call. It will do what it's supposed to do.
Right.
There's no frills, no bells, no whistles, but it'll sound like the animal or the bird that it's supposed to sound like, period. And it's the most economical way to go as well.
What kind of got you into like the call making in general though? Like what kind, like with your upbringing in the outdoors, what kind of, I mean, in my understanding, you just started not too long ago.
Yep.
What kind of got you to start making these calls?
For a number of years, I worked for a company here in Ohio. And it was nice to get calls from them because I worked for them, but I decided at a point I wanted to hand make these things myself.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought there's not going to be a whole lot better than calling an animal in with something, or a bird with something that I made.
Right.
And that's what got my drive going. So I did talk to the owner of the company. I said, look, I'm not trying to compete with you, but I want to start making my own stuff. And he said, go for it. If that's your passion, he said, I'm not going to hold anybody up from their passion.
That's
and his
awesome.
name was Alyx Vadrinsky. He owned Chestnut Ridge Game Calls here in Ohio.
Okay.
And a number of years ago, he passed away. And he was, besides my dad, he was my next biggest turkey hunting mentor. And, I've grown. The business has grown quite a bit to the point that we're in February. And I never boast about myself, brag about myself, but we're only in February and I'm already having the best year I've ever had.
That's awesome.
Primarily turkey calls at this point, just because that's our next biggest season coming
Right.
up. Is waterfowl season just ended, so the next big season is turkey, and that's what drove me to buy my first lathe, was building my own turkey calls, because that's my family's passion, was always turkeys. We love to deer hunt, love to turkey hunt. I got into waterfowl myself a little bit, but turkeys are it for me. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I feel like turkey, making turkey calls just in general is just a whole different art, obviously, compared to your barrels for your duck and goose calls. I don't know. It just might be me because I'm just ignorant, obviously, about the call making and what goes into it all. But there's something crazy, like a different feeling I have if I have a, not a factory, one out of a million calls in my hand. Like this is the certain one, you know what I mean? Like this is one of one.
Sure. And that's what I'm always striving to do. And that's what I talk about. I could take two pieces of wood that are next to each other. They came out of the same log,
Mm-hmm.
but two pieces of wood, they're not going to look anything alike. They're not going to even sound anything alike. Potentially, I should say that potentially.
Right.
But that's why with turkey calls, with pot calls especially, I match a striker to the call before it leaves my shop. I'm not going to put up, somebody says, I want that pot call and I want that striker. And, if somebody's insistent and that's what they want, I'll do it, but I will beg them before they buy it to let me match them up, because not always, because you have a striker sitting next to a pot call, do they sound well together.
100%.
You have to pair them up.
100%. I completely understand that, because there's so many times where I'm super big into turkey hunting, and I don't know why I've never had like an actual turkey vest until now. Well, I know why. My youngest pup chewed up my vest, so that's why.
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah, and with I think he chewed up one or two slate calls that I had in there. So yeah, it was it wasn't a good day in the house that day. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But like
Better than him chewing up your hand, though.
that's very exactly. Yeah. I'm telling you, when you sent that picture the other day, it literally looked like a coyote bite.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Yeah, you're not the only one that said that.
that's crazy. I don't know. I don't think I told you, Alex. I was talking to him the other day about, trying to figure out a day for him to come on and talk. And he's like, yeah, I'm pretty much free for a while now, and sent me a picture of his hand. And well, I guess, Eric, I'll let you tell the story behind it all.
Well, I have a chocolate lab who is 95% of the time, he's my dude. And I was cleaning his ears, and he started to whimper. And he does have this thing, the other 5% of the time we call him Cujo, because he's very possessive of things that aren't his. So he has any number of toys that are on the floor that he plays with whenever he wants to play with them. But when he takes a remote, a pillow, a couch cushion, a phone, you're not going to get it from him, one, without a fight, or two, without food. He's very food driven. So, and we've learned that over the years, and thankfully the few times that it's happened, it's been me that he's lost his mind on. Because if it had been my wife or my daughters, I don't know where we'd be right now. Or my neighbor. I have neighbors with young children. Thankfully it wasn't them as well. This is one of the things I'll say real quick. I believe that everything happens for a reason, and you have to find the silver lining in everything that happens to you, even when it's something bad. I say that to a lot of people. So my silver lining at this point is, at least it was me, and it was nobody else. It wasn't a good situation. It scared me to death. I had to get stitches in my hand in 2 different places, and I'm just thankful it was me and nobody else. More than
so he just, when you're cleaning his ears, he just turn and snap at you?
He started whimpering, and I backed up in my chair, and I tried, you raise your voice, like how I said, it's okay, and I knew what was coming. And he turned and he started growling, and he came at me just like a coyote. Kyle, just like you said, he came at me like he was an angry coyote. And all I was doing was trying to clean his ears. I don't know if he's having an issue with them. I'm not even going to attempt at this point to try to clean them. I need to, because he's shaking his head quite a bit. But it just mortifies me to even think about going into his ear right now.
Has he been in the water at all lately?
No.
That's strange. Because, I mean, Ellie, my black, and obviously Alex with your dog, I'm sure you know as well, after swimming on the beach or whatever, the earaches with the labs in general, or any dog with the flappy ears, they get so bad earaches. And that's how I know when Ellie is having problems. She starts shaking her head a lot. It's crazy though.
I'm fortunate. My dog doesn't knock on wood, she hasn't had one ear infection, or I don't really notice anything go with her ears, thank God, with the water.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's 6, and this is the first time he's ever had any issue with his ears, or me going into his ears for that matter. So he didn't like something, and he was telling me that very thing. I'm not a big fan of what you're doing, and you're going to stop.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to, because also, like, at the end of the day, right, it's an animal. They have no way of communicating other than, like,
sure,
yo, back up, man. This don't, like you said, this don't feel good.
Right.
And here's the other thing too. I've had dogs all my life. I begged for this dog because we had a great Weimaraner before him.
Mm-hmm.
I've had labs my entire life. The Weimaraner was the first dog I'd had other than a Weimaraner, and he was 1,000,000% the best dog I ever had in my life. And my dad, he raised coon dogs. We had labs. And he said, Eric, he told me when I was young, he said, you'll have one perfect dog in your life.
Yep.
And that Weimaraner was my dude. I mean, that dude, he was absolutely perfect. He didn't bark. He wasn't high strung. And everybody, oh, you got a Weimaraner. They're so high strung. They're so wild. They're so wiry. Not him. He was as mellow as anything you'd ever want to imagine. He was so awesome. So we lost him about 7 years ago, and I lasted about a year. And I said, "Look, I gotta get a dog." And we got this chocolate lab, and even when he was younger, he was very possessive of things. I don't know if it started from the kennel. It didn't start with me or us. I know that, because that's not how I raise dogs. But he's just, like I said, when he gets something, he's 6 now, and when he has something that's not his, you're not going to take it from him.
Now, question, and this is kind of not to go down a whole rabbit hole and getting away from your calls or anything, but
yep.
In your opinion, and I kind of want to know yours as well, Alyx, do you think it's a chocolate lab kind of thing? Because I've heard, I mean, people talk about, like, you know, obviously the silver. I got a black and a red. They talk about the silvers not being true labs, but then they talk about chocolates being like the dodo birds of the lab, you know, breed.
Yep.
What's your kind of take on that?
100%. When I got that dog, I have a very close friend of mine who bred labs and got into the English creams that come from, I don't know if it's the Middle Eastern or Western European countries. I mean, he gets them from way overseas. And then he got a male and a female and started breeding them on his own. Well, he told me, he's like, you know, chocolate labs are the worst labs. And I said, Ward, I said, I've had a yellow and I've had a black. I've never had a chocolate, so I'm at least going to try it. And he said, okay. He said, be careful what you wish for.
So someone warned you at least, though.
Right. And he's lived up to its billing 100%.
Yeah, and you know, my fiance used to breed these dogs, and she actually taught me a lot when it came to mine and the pedigrees and the genetics and everything that runs down the hill with labs. And basically, what she described to me was the black lab was the original lab created, and then the yellow, I believe, came after that, then the chocolate. And as the years progress and as the dogs are bred and things are bred out of them and things are bred into them, those genetics over time take sort of a negative downturn to where I've heard the same thing about chocolates now, like in their aggressive demeanor, and those genetics just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of taper off in certain ways. Yeah, deteriorate, exactly. And so I think maybe that could be the reason why. But yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, because they're awesome dogs, right? But I've also heard the same thing, you know.
And obviously, not telling people that all chocolates are bad or whatever. Obviously, I mean, I've met some amazing chocolates, but I've heard stories and witnessed family members' dogs that weren't all there, I guess. I don't know. But
that's one of his biggest downfalls as well, is he's so smart. I told you about the toys he has. I can tell him, if you came to my house and they said, no, watch this. And if I tell him, his name is Gus, I'd say, Gus, orange. He will go pick out his orange toy and bring it to me. Out of the 8 or 10 that are on the floor, he will bring the color that I tell him to bring. It's the craziest thing ever, because he's so smart. And he lives up to the lab billing. He will play fetch until your arm falls off.
That's how my young one is.
He just has that bad trait.
And it's I always hear that too. The dogs, and I see that with my black lab. The dogs half time are smarter than you. Like they, you know, you get mad at them for not listening, and they're like, no, the bird's over here, or whatever it may be that they're going after. A lot of these dogs are a lot smarter than some of their owners out there.
Yeah, I'll never forget, man. I talked to Eric at Erie Kennel one time, and he had Dixie, and I was having a force fetching issue, and I took him to Eric, and Eric got it right in about a week. But he said, this dog is smart. Yeah. He said, do not let her outsmart you. He said, she'll play dumb all day long. I feel that.
Yep,
Very
exactly.
easy to do. But getting back to the calls
Sure.
and stuff. So when you first started, making these calls and stuff, what kind of, like, in your head, obviously there's a lot of call companies out there nowadays.
Yep.
It's almost like the outdoor pages or anything nowadays. There's a lot of it. What kind of thoughts ran through your head to make you different from other people, or what makes you different from other people now?
Well, that's going back to the 3 different lines that I have, and potentially fourth. The second line I have is the Firebolt line. I call it the Fire line. That's how the company got its name. It was, and I still am. Mike can tell you, I'm working on developing my own custom duck call.
Mm-hmm.
You waterfowlers are a very fine-tuned niche, and I've been berated a million times too many for making a stuffed duck call. I'm done making stuffed ones. I'm going to start making custom ones, and I'm trying to develop one. And because I'm primarily a turkey hunter, I have killed ducks, I have killed geese, but I'm not an elite caller. I needed help. And that's how Michael and I met, was just talking about it. If we were closer, we would be very much closer friends.
Right.
We're at opposite ends of the state, opposite corners of the state, so it's very difficult. So we reached out to each other, and I was trying to get somebody to help me develop this custom duck call. So in that, when I was trying to get started a number of years ago, I met, if you guys have heard of Josh Raggio.
Sounds familiar. I don't, off the top of my head, no, but I will say that I am so bad with names. Faces I'm good with.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
He's a very well-known custom duck call maker. Half a dozen years ago, when I first delved into the custom duck call, I reached out to him, and then there's another guy from here in Ohio, Ron Davis. He's from Spencer, which is by me. They're the 2 biggest influences as far as helping me get to where I am with my duck calls. But Josh told me, find something and make it your own. And I'm big on quotes too. I'll throw out quotes through this entire podcast.
Well, let me write some down so I can put them on my next Instagram post then.
Sure. Find something and make it your own. And I said, well, I already have an idea for that. And that's when I started fractal burning my calls, because nobody was doing it. And to this date, I don't think anybody has copied me.
As I say, I've never seen that kind of style, I guess you would want to say.
Right. It's pretty unique, and it was something that I like doing to my other woodworking business. I like fractal burning stuff. And I said, I can put this on my calls, and it would be like signing them. It's literally making it my own.
Right.
So that's the second line, and that's kind of how I got there, was, find something, make it your own. I'm still working on developing that duck call. And to your point about how intricate turkey calls are, custom duck calls are a million times worse. It has taken me so long to get a call, and it's my own issue as well. I just talked to Josh a couple days ago, and I asked him a couple questions, and in talking to him, it's more my issue than it is me building the call. I'm trying to get too intricate.
I could definitely see that with I feel like turkey calls, obviously not every call is the same, different wood, different, slate, glass, whatever you're using.
Yep.
But once you get that down, I don't know. You could even say that with waterfowl hunting, but like the scratching, the striker. I mean, I feel like the waterfowl, like you were saying, like waterfowl hunters obviously are very particular on the hand grips, the barrels, but obviously the barrels are what are making the sound too.
Yep.
I feel like there might be just a lot more that go into the waterfowl.
Yep.
We're finicky, man.
Right.
It's just, we're really finicky about our calls.
Right. And that's where I'm trying to get to. And somebody even mentioned to me about a month ago when I put a stuffed call up on a page on Facebook called Call Nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I put a stuffed call up there, and this dude totally berated me for putting a stuffed call on the page. And I was like, listen, I never said it was a custom call. And I put a sound file on it. And the sound file sounded good enough to call a duck. Sounded good enough to call a goose. I never said I was a competition caller.
It's so
I
bad.
never said that was a custom duck call. I said it's a duck call, it's a goose call, period.
Like me and Alex have talked recently, the waterfowl industry alone, and this is kind of one of the big reasons why we started the podcast off, because it's such a cutthroat thing. If you post something wrong or somebody doesn't like it or whatever it may be, like I seen a thing on Facebook the other day, a guy shot 5 bands out of one flock, and the first post on there was, it's not that uncommon. I do it all the time, and it's like the first time I went out of my way and commented back to that guy, which I had no business on doing, but like it's just that those kind of things get to me. I said, either way, it was a hell of a hunt. So why are you taking your time out of your day to down talk this guy when he's, this is like that could have been the best day of his life right there, and you're down talking like it's like no big deal.
I agree.
The waterfowl industry, like I said, it's such a cutthroat thing, and people are scared to ask questions or get feedback. And like I said, that's kind of why one of the reasons that we started the podcast, to talk to people from all over the country or even different countries, and, pick their brains about certain stuff or talk about stuff that people might be nervous about talking on a platform like Facebook or Instagram or whatever it may be.
Right. And to that point, I just made a comment about something. It was like a paragraph. Just like when I get to talking on the phone, when I start a post or a comment, my comment becomes the Bible. It just went on and on and on forever. And I'm like, listen, it started with the argument of these TSS loads for turkeys.
Yep.
And shooting a turkey at 60 and 70 yards and beyond. And I put on there, listen, everybody, why can't we all just get along and be turkey hunters?
Right.
If you want to shoot one at 60 or 70 yards and you're confident you can make that shot, good on you.
I will
the
say,
reason I make calls is to bring them in my face. I want whatever I'm calling, I want them in my face.
I will say
as close as I can get them.
I talked to Mike a lot about, like, there was one hole this year where, I'm the same way. Like, most of our turkeys that we kill every year are within 20 yards. Like, my sister, I made her pass up her first bird at, I think it was 35, 40 yards. Like, I told her, don't shoot it. Like, it's not interested in us. Like, it's a learning point in that standpoint. And I get on Mike about shooting his 10 gauge when I'm trying to finish these birds at 15, 20 yards. It's like, dude, you could use a 410 and kill these birds. Like, you don't need a 10 gauge to blow out your shoulder. It's like, it's not that big of a deal. But I do understand, if you want to do it, then do it. Like, all kudos to you. That's just not for me.
1,000%.
I want to get the birds close. It's just what it is.
Yeah, you guys are all waterfowl hunters. Support each other. Why does it have to become? Everything seems like it has to be. This is what I talk to my girls all the time about. Things in a social media page or in a text or anything like that. All
right, sorry about that little technical difficulty there. But what were you saying about the waterfowl?
Why can't you guys get along and just agree to be waterfowl hunters, just like the argument that I posted about? We're all turkey hunters. It doesn't matter to me how you want to hunt a turkey, because the fact of the matter is we all should, right now, we need to be with each other and support each other and not be against each other.
Especially in this day and age.
That's what I'm sick and tired of.
It's been this way for so long, Eric, especially in the waterfowl community. The egos and I think the clout that people are chasing on social media has just become such a distraction to what we're all actually trying to do that it's watering down the sport.
Sure.
And that's
people have asked me, are you trying to be the next Duck Dynasty by creating this custom duck call? No.
Right.
I have no desire to be a millionaire, billionaire. In fact, I bet if you asked Phil Robertson, the patriarch of that family, he wouldn't have wanted all this notoriety either. The only reason the company is where it is now is because of Willie.
Well, I think
Phil didn't want anything to do with this.
I want to say in the documentary that I watched on him, he was turning down a lot of big deals. Obviously, with like how they grew up, the money was nice, but like some of the big time deals and companies that were coming at him, he would turn down a lot of it just because he didn't even want to deal with it.
Right.
But me and Alex were like kind of what he was just talking on. Even the people from Michigan over from Wisconsin, like the difference of competition, I guess you want to say, between like groups and stuff. But it'll go back, like for me, going back to like social media standpoints, there's so many different stages in people's careers in the hunting world.
Mm-hmm.
You got your just bloodthirsty guys. You got, you want to start taking people out. You got just pictures or whatever. There's just so many different like viewpoints of it all. And you see one guy shooting a bunch of birds, so you want to be just like that guy. So you got to be so gung-ho about it all. And it's just not, I don't know. It's just, you can ramble on and on about it. And
sure.
I don't know what would fix it, to be honest with you.
I just think we're in a day and age with technology that's what technology does, is it just drives conversation, which drives arguments.
Right.
Or I'm better than you. And listen, you guys don't even know me. You're just learning me right now. I'm a humble guy. I don't have any aspirations of setting the world on fire selling calls. Would I like it to be my full-time job? Yes. I'd be lying if I said no. It's something I do right now as a hobby, but I would love it to become my full-time. I'd love for my business to expand enough. That's all I do is I got to my shop and I build calls.
That's
I hate punching a clock.
That's the same thing with obviously like this podcast and our Instagram and Facebook page. Like we have merchandise and stuff, but like you said, you'd be lying to say like it wouldn't, like I'm not doing it to try to make a living off of it, but it's not the reason why I'm doing it. And I feel like there's so many different people that are doing it for the wrong reasons, when like the way you are with your company, like being the humble guy that's going through everything, gets you so much further than those guys that are just keeps on pushing just BS stuff out the door. It's just like the passion behind stuff goes so much further.
Right. And that's, that's another thing I say to people, my pro staffers, especially my field staffers, and even people I sell calls to. One of my biggest things is truth. I don't want any pictures of my calls with whatever quarry you're hunting if my call had nothing to do with that hunt.
Right.
I want real photos. This duck call killed this duck. This turkey call killed this turkey, or had a part in it, or I used your owl hooter to locate this bird, which I shot later on in the day.
Right.
It had something to do with the hunt. It may not have killed the bird, but it had something to do with it. But I've actually heard stories, I've been part of stories where people have posted pictures and staged calls with dead animals and birds, where people have come back on social media and said, hey, I was with John, Susie, Larry on that hunt, and they weren't using that call. And that's the last thing I want. That's the last thing I need, is any kind of negative publicity. My dad said, well, any publicity is good publicity, but I don't believe that. And I don't want it. I want real stuff, the truth.
That's a hard thing. I will say to the people that are going back, they got too much time on their hands, that are putting that much time and effort to talk about somebody else and what calls they're using. But I am with you on that. But it goes back to that social media standpoint. There's so many fake people out there that'll just do whatever they want. And I'm sure with you being a call maker and other call companies that, like, we're super close with GK Call. That's all we run for our waterfowl. Mm-hmm. So many people, even at the booth at Point Moulet this year, like wanting just handouts and stuff. And it's
right.
like, what? That's not what it's about, man. Like, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Right.
It's,
Right.
it's just, it's
1,000%.
nuts. Absolutely nuts. What you did say, you kind of mentioned before we were recording today too, about the calls and the reason why you do it with like the kids, or like I guess it was another quote that you put. Well,
Veterans.
that too, but like the reasoning behind why you do it and the passion that drives you to keep on going with the calls.
Mm-hmm.
Would you kind of be able to just touch back on that standpoint?
Sure. Much like Mike reaching out to me for your call, it means the world to me when somebody calls and says, I need you to make a custom, whatever it might be, call for my buddy. And, this one just happened to have a photo in it, so it had a little more personal meaning. It was something that I could do. But even if it doesn't, if somebody calls and says, hey, I need you to make a call for my dad, that means the world to me. That's priceless to me.
Right.
That's me having a part in something, hopefully in the future, that the guy who, takes their child out and they shoot their first turkey with it, they shoot their first duck, goose with it, they shoot their first deer with it. Having a part in a veteran who never thought they could hunt again, shooting a turkey, and seeing them melt. I've been a part of that before, and there's nothing that comes close to that other than doing the stuff that I do with my family. Myself. But helping a veteran get a bird was crazy. And then, I'd say it as part of my motto, part of the thing about the reason why I do it and why it gives me such drive is I'm taking part of Mother Nature for the most part with the woods that I use, and I'm using it, I'm reforming it, I'm using it to fool her own critters. And whether it be a waterfowl, a bird, or an animal, the coolest thing in the world to me is that I'm able to do that. I'm able to recreate a piece of wood, and nowadays there's plastics involved, there's acrylics involved, but there's usually some sort of wood involved in it as well that came from nature to begin with.
Right.
And I'm fooling Mother Nature's critters. That's what?
Yeah.
That's the coolest thing to me.
And that's what I think, even like with, I don't have one. I've been wanting one for years now. One of the wing bone calls.
Yep.
And I think it's just like the history, I guess you want to say, or like you said, like the nature behind it all. Using, turkey hunting for me in general is something completely different than just waterfowl. Like, it's more of, it's one of those things. It's a very hard thing to explain because it's a I don't know, sentimental. You feel more for the bird itself. I don't know. It's just different for me. It hits like different than a goose coming in. Obviously, a locked up goose or duck into the field, yeah, that's a beautiful thing. But there's something about a turkey hunt that I just don't think a lot of people understand.
For me, it's the one-on-one. And at one point I said to my dad, I said, we were on a hunt together and we were successful to where we came home with a bird. Mm-hmm. And I said, Dad, this is the coolest thing ever. I said, to have a 20-pound bird scream in your face so hard and in your chest that you can feel it in your chest. He's like, son, there's only one thing better. He said, imagine a 1,000-pound bull elk screaming at your face at 50 yards.
I couldn't imagine that.
You got me. Yeah. You got me.
I couldn't imagine that. But like, even for our turkey hunts, like not the bird last year, but the year before, my last two turkeys have been by myself, which is a whole different, like the last year's bird. No, I'm sorry, 2 years ago, that bird, I was going to take my buddy out and went to the cemetery to see my grandma.
Mm.
And was talking to my grandma about the hunt in the morning. Hopefully my buddy is able to like get a bird in the morning. I just really want him to, have the same drive that I have, because it's a very difficult thing. And that's why, like, I've talked to Alyx, and like the people around here always don't seem to have the drive like I do.
Right.
And I want that around us, like around me, But so I was at the cemetery talking to her, and he ends up bailing on me. So I said, if I wake up, I wake up. If I don't, I don't. I'll just whatever. Didn't have any plans at all. My dad was after one turkey for weeks, and he would just get hung up. Like, he would literally sit in the middle of the field, and all the hens would come to him. Like, he wouldn't have to do any work. Like, just the hens were going to him. So woke up super early, actually, without even an alarm clock for whatever reason, which is like unheard of for me personally, because I'm terrible in the morning. And I get out there. I'm like, I'm just going to sit in this spot, see what this bird does, yada, yada, yada. I shot that bird at 7 steps in front of me, I think it was.
Nice.
And it was just like what took place the day before to how many times this bird's outsmarted us. I sat with that bird for, I don't know, half hour, probably 45 minutes.
Yep.
And people are like, man, where were you at? Like, you shot your bird at this time and you're now just getting back. It's like, dude, like, the moment that you have in them certain circumstances is just unbelievable. And Alyx, I don't know if you've gotten into turkey hunting much, and if you haven't, it's a whole other reason why you need to move back to Michigan.
Yeah, I shot a good bird I was after. Last year was the first bird I ever shot. But I was home last year for about 4 or 5 days, and I went out with a couple buddies, and we scouted one morning down south, some state land, and we saw this big tom. And the way that my buddies hunt from home, or from where we're from, Brownstown, we scoot and shoot. Like, so that was calling and hearing a gobble back, and then getting up and moving and gobble. And I mean, it's just that whole, and it's just you and that bird,
right,
or you and that couple of birds that are around. It was a totally new and different experience for me, and it was awesome to get on the board. When they're gobbling at you and spitting at you 15 yards away, it's pretty intense.
Yep.
I tell every new guy that I take out, it's like, you've never heard an Eastern gobble before. And they're like, yeah, I've heard turkeys before. I'm like, no. This isn't your farm turkeys. Like, these turkeys will gobble 100 yards away, and you're going to feel it down to your toe hairs. Like, you're going to feel that gobble through your entire body. Like, you don't understand. And a quote I seen the other day was about turkey hunting. Like, don't quote me on this quote, but it was along the lines of, like, breathing life back into that bird, just because it's that whole thing behind it all. It's a unbelievable thing, turkey hunting.
Yep. You're talking about hunts from last year. Well, last year I fulfilled a 7-year journey. I lost my dad 5 years ago, and 2 years prior to that, I started hunting with my grandfather's shotgun. So I was trying to shoot a bird with Granddaddy's gun, just like the song, the line in the song, Granddaddy's gun.
Yeah.
So 2 years prior, I'd only been out a couple times because my dad's health wasn't well. And then it took me a few years just to get back to the woods after losing my dad, as he was so instrumental to me and what I do and everything. And it all came together last year, and I was trying to get my girls in on, there was 3 of these birds, and they crossed the road, and they told me, Dad, you got to go in there and you got to set up, and we're going to set up over here in case they've come back across the road, and it's just going to be whoever's on the right side of the road is on the right side of the road.
Right.
And it just happened to be me. I was watching a longbeard out in the field with a bunch of hens, and another longbeard came in behind and walked right into my decoys. and I was able to finally fulfill that line. That old Longbeard on the wall was shot with that old box call and Granddaddy's gun. So
yeah, it gives me chills just thinking about that.
Oh, it was crazy. It was an old Model 12 Winchester. Not like it wasn't a hammered, muzzle loader, which I've shot turkeys with a muzzle loader, but not this one. But my grandfather's gun is a full choke barrel, and I just put a post up about these guys shooting these TSSs with these tight chokes, and I said, here's a gun that's 50 years old with a full choke in it, and I'll put it up against any of your guys' gun with them TSSs. So it has an unreal pattern to it.
I agree with that.
Have you used TSS at all? Or Alex, did you shoot your bird with TSS?
No, I didn't shoot my bird with TSS.
I can't afford TSS.
So one of our big sponsors is Migra Ammunition. Mm-hmm. And Migra just came out with their brand new turkey load. And so this year will be our first year using the TSS. And I haven't patterned it yet, but I'm super curious to see because, like I said, I like those birds within 20 yards. I think Mike he ended up shooting a Jake. He doubled up with my buddy. It was his first bird and Mike's first Michigan bird. And I'm kind of curious to see how that TSS is in that range, or am I going to have to just scoot my range back further now, even though I like them in that close? I'm very curious on all of that.
Yep. And that's when I was telling you I did hunting seminars, and I would tell people to pattern their guns for the guys that had 3.5-inch guns. I have a Mossberg 835. It shoots 3.5-inch shells.
Mm-hmm.
3-inch shells pattern better than 3.5-inch shells out of that gun, and that's off of a rest. That's not me just saying, it's me because I'm flinching because it's a 3.5-inch shell. That's not true. That's shooting off of a bench rest. It shoots better with 3-inch loads than it does 3.5. Period.
I personally am I don't want to say against 3.5-inch shells. But I was just telling, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, we've been redoing our goose trailer, and we had one of the kids come out and help us out. And he's like, is Migra coming out with 3.5? And I believe they have now. But like, man, listen, though, you're not going to need 3.5-inch shells. You're not going to need all this crazy stuff that you're going to see. It's not what you think it is. I was shooting geese a couple years ago with 5-shot 2 3/4 shells.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was say the 3.5. There ain't no need for it.
No, you're just gonna blow your shoulder out.
Right.
I want to
go get away with BB or 2-shot.
Right.
And it's it's all about knowing the range of your weapon.
Right.
That's everybody that's in this and wants to shoot further, et cetera, et cetera. What you were talking about 3.5 just a few minutes ago about not liking it. It gives hunters a false sense of security.
Correct.
Oh, I got a 3.5-inch shell.
I could reach out to
one guy says it was actually the other partner of the old company that I used to work for. He shot a 3.5-inch 12 gauge. He said the only reason I shoot 3.5 is because they don't make 4.
Yep.
I'm like, wait, what?
You can have all of it then. I don't want any of it.
Yes. And that's, I think, my next. I'm really having a lot of fun shooting my grandfather's gun.
Mm-hmm.
It is a great shooting gun. And unfortunately, we lost power, and I lost my bird that was in the freezer. Oh. So I do have the tail fan, the beard, the spurs, so I'll be able to salvage that. But we lost power for like 5 days.
It's tough.
And I was like, I got to do something. I couldn't find a taxidermist that was willing to help me out. And I said, well, I'm just going to salvage what I can. And I did.
Especially
but anyway, I think my next step is a bow. I really want to shoot one with a bow. I love shooting my bow. And I just think it's that last box to check for me for turkey hunting.
My next, I don't know. It's so hard for me because I want to get, like right now I'm using my Benelli for waterfowl and turkey.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not switching anything, but I'd really like to get a 20 gauge for one or the other, whether it be for turkey or waterfowl. Because I mean, we have some duck holes and stuff that, like I said, Mike was shooting a 10 gauge in there, and there's no business even shooting a 12 gauge in there. I mean, you could literally kill him with a rock half the time.
Sure.
And my next goal, I guess, for a turkey, which I don't know if it's going to be this year, just for financial purposes, is either going to be a 20 or a 410.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it would be about, like what it is about the 410s, and I think it's just the close and that up close personal thing with that individual bird.
Right.
But that's like the next goal for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's guys shooting those TSSs with a 410 that swear they're going to kill turkeys at 60 yards. Okay, good for you.
Right. Like if that's what floats your boat, I mean, like me and Alex talk about people around us with like their bands on geese and stuff like that. Like if you like shooting bands and nothing but band, whatever floats your boat, that's fine. You know, whatever. You want to shoot a turkey at 60, 80 yards and you're happy with it, then by all means go out there and have a good time with it. But
right.
I can't, I don't know. It's more than that to me. You know, like I said, I told my sister to not shoot that bird last year, which she could have easily probably shot that bird. But in the same sense, it's a learning thing for her to understand that there's more than just throwing lead at that turkey at 35, 40 yards, which I got like heckled on for it. But like people don't think of the learning experience or like the reasoning behind it all.
Yep. And to that point, you know what I'm saying about knowing your limitations with it. How many people that buy these TSSs? My gun has a great pattern at 60 and 70 yards. You hear about that. And I shot this bird at 65 yards. How many people are you not hearing about crippled birds? Because
it's a very good point.
Don't want to bring that up.
It's a very good point.
I mean, nobody's going to bring that up on social media. You know, I shot 2 and I crippled them before I shot my 3rd. You know, nobody's going to say that.
No.
And let's be honest, is it happening? I can't say for 100% certainty it is, but I'll bet you it is.
I mean, you're right. I don't want to say 100%, but with the amount of people and the talking about the long shots and stuff, I would put a lot of money on it. Put it that way,
sure.
I guess.
Sure.
I don't know. Like I said, whatever floats their boat, it is like. And I guess that even goes back to a point that I want to touch on with the turkeys. So you have these crippled birds running around. Obviously, you're not tracking a turkey like you do a deer, just like a goose. You soar a goose or a duck in a cornfield, good luck finding it, you know. How has your guys' turkey population down there been? Because I've been hearing a lot of things about, you know, or hearing from a lot of people that turkey populations are kind of just disappearing and they don't know where the birds are going. And whether that's from predators, whether that's from something that they're spraying in fields, that they're digesting and killing them off. I mean, what's your kind of population looking like down there?
Well, I would say, you know, our DNR or ODNR gets a lot of flack for a lot of the seasons and the bag limits that they put out. But I will be the first to say, I think they do a pretty darn good job. And there's a reason why the last 2 years, we've only been allowed 1 bird here in Ohio, where for 20 plus years, we were allowed 2. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but it was a long time we were allowed 2. And when they dropped it to 1, couple years ago, people were just up in arms, and we were like, hey, the people like me were like, hey, do you want to have a bird to hunt in a few years? Because if we keep going the way we are, we're not going to. That's why they lower the bag limits, so that it's there for your future.
I'm absolutely huge on, usually per year we're close to 10 birds a year with family and friends coming out and me or my dad helping them get on birds, whatever it may be. But obviously, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, we shot one already here. It kind of goes back to my scouting, earlier before the year even starts. What am I seeing out there? How many birds are out that way? I don't want to shoot 3 or 4 birds over here because what's the flock going to look like next year? It might be done with completely if that's the case. We're bouncing around. I think, what was it, last year? Every bird we shot, I think, was on a different property.
Good.
Possibly.
Yeah. I didn't want to shoot. I mean, I had 2 daughters with me the day I was hunting, and after I shot my bird, my middle daughter missed one of the other birds, and there was still another bird gobbling. We couldn't do anything with him, but I'm thinking, and it was our last day to hunt.
Mm-hmm.
So we were done after that day, and I'm thinking, if we shoot all 3 of these, we're not leaving much seed for next year on a farm that doesn't have that many birds to begin with.
Right.
But, I mean, when you're trying to fill tags, and, let's be honest, too, a lot of this comes down to the guy, and I'm not one of them, but there's a guy out there that is trying to put food on the table for his family.
Correct.
Yeah. And he'll shoot whatever he can shoot and hopefully do it ethically and the right way and not take an errant shot or a non-lethal shot, but he's trying to put meat on the table. Right. He's not looking for a long beard. He's not looking for, whatever. He'll shoot a bearded hen because it's meat. There was a thing on Facebook the other day about somebody shooting bearded hens. If you want to shoot a bearded hen, God bless you.
Yeah, right.
Shoot them.
Right.
I'm probably not going to do it, depending on the situation. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I'm probably not.
There's a couple hens around us where there's a couple whiteys walking around.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a beard on one of them jokers, I'm telling you right now, they might be taking a dirt nap.
And good on you. That's your choice. And if it makes you happy, good for you. That's how we need to be with each other.
100%. But I also feel like even, there's got to be a thing with, I don't know. I don't even want to say that because the turkey population around us anyway, and just speaking for the area that I hunt, me and my dad started hunting there, I don't know, we'll say 6 years ago. And probably another 3 or 4 years prior to that, the DNR actually had to drop turkeys off, and they've actually absolutely blown up around the area, thank God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, you want to be able to help the population grow as much as you can. And I think a lot of people for us, or a lot of areas around us, the predator hunting has just been absolutely terrible. Like, nobody does it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was bringing up 2 things that I wanted to say right there about, you were talking about the population. But your guys touched on it the other night about coons.
Yeah. Yep.
Nobody hunts raccoons anymore.
Well, and a lot of it is
gone, dying.
It is, man.
A lot of it though is the you're not getting anything for the pelts anymore, which
1,000,000%.
I understand, right. But at the same sense, if you're a turkey hunter, and if you're not, I'm sure you don't care, obviously, because why would you care about something you're not even into?
Right.
But just nobody goes after them. And I think I even brought it up in the podcast. I seen, 5 or 6 of them in broad daylight, and I always wonder why I'm only seeing 3 to 4 times over in that area every year, and there's no poult anywhere.
Yep. People do not realize, and coyotes are terrible on them, and I think there's probably more coyote hunters now than there is coon hunters, truthfully. But people don't realize the damage that a population of raccoons will do to turkey population.
And if you also look about Right, 100%, Eric. And also what they've done as well to the duck and goose population by feeding off their nests and the eggs. I was reading something on Delta waterfowl the other day where at one point they decimated a certain part of the country's waterfowl population by over 50%, which is humongous for a certain region of the country. Taking 3-4 states. I just, like Kyle said, nobody hunts them anymore. It's not the old time tradition that it used to be, running dogs on them. And I think just like you said, it's because of the pelt thing. There's really I don't really know guys that eat them, right? They're kind of obviously a diseased, dirty animal. I don't think I'd even go there unless I was desperate. But there's really no use, right, for the pelt. So I don't know how we fix that.
Here's the thing too. My dad always said is, if you have a lab, they're meant to be hunted. If you have a Walker coonhound, they're meant to be hunted. So take your dog out and go coon hunting. What you do with them, whether you can't get anything for them or not, it doesn't matter. But let the dog get some exercise. Let them do what they were bred to do, and do that. In the Puppy Bowl for the Super Bowl, there was a whole bunch of Walker coonhound mixed dogs.
Really?
And I'm like, what is happening? Why are we mixing Walker coonhounds? It was like 4 or 5 different species if you go back and watch it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're not all the same, like Walker coonhound Shih Tzu or whatever it was. It was Walker coonhound this, Walker coonhound that, Walker. And I'm like, what did one Walker coonhound just have his day in a freaking APL or something?
I think just like
holy smokes.
Another thing too is I hate to say it this way, but I mean this is just how I was raised by my grandfather. Is the world year by year, or year after year, is getting softer and it's losing tradition. And watching a squirrel dog work, that's one of my favorite things in the world. But just nobody does it anymore. The dogs are more for home and on the couch than they are for what they used to be 20 years ago when guys were running 7-8 dogs.
Yep, 1,000%. I agree. And that statement that your grandfather had, my grandfather said the exact same thing. Eric, as a society, we have become soft.
100%.
And the downside,
I completely agree with you, Alyx.
The downside is it's only getting worse, unfortunately.
Correct. And technology is doing that to all of us. But let me make one other point to the population before we go on. And I'll say I'm looking forward, and I'm probably one of very few people, unless people really understand this. I'm looking forward to this locust population thing for this year because they're saying it's going to be the biggest hatch in like 20 or 30 years or something like that.
Really?
Turkeys love locusts. And
really?
Yes, I swear to you. This is why I say I did turkey hunting seminars, so this is where I will brag just a little. I eat, sleep, and breathe turkey hunting, literally. And when people talk, oh, these locusts, like, yeah, I'm not looking forward to it. I can't wait. Because next year you're going to have a bunch of jakes. And the year after,
you're
going to have a bunch of longbeards.
Right.
Watch. Mark my words.
I'm going to write it down on my calendar.
Write it down.
I'm going to hold you to
it. We had my old job. We're big football guys. And whenever you made a bold prediction, Browns are going to the Super Bowl, you had to write it down on the calendar. So
hopefully that wasn't you.
What was that?
Hopefully that wasn't you saying the Browns are going to the Super Bowl.
Every year I say the Browns are going to the Super Bowl.
Like I said before, I'm sorry for you. That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say.
That was the bold prediction board. It was a whiteboard we kept up there. The one year I actually predicted the Texas Longhorns to win the championship with Vince Young.
Was that USC? Yeah, USC Rose Bowl.
That's it.
Yeah, I know.
1,000%.
Yeah,
I won.
I want to kind of touch back on, I want to say your dad or your grandpa's comment with why you're getting more people out into the woods too. And it's for that reason that we just kind of brought up, that the world is getting softer in the sport, whether it be waterfowl or turkey hunting, fishing, deer hunting, whatever it may be. there's just becoming less and less and less. And it's a, we got to keep that going and keep the passion going and teach people the right ways and right things to do out there.
Right. I took a young man from our church and I took him to our local metro park. And I'm not going to say whether or not this was completely legal, but I have a good friend that's a lieutenant in the Metro Park Ranger Service, and he had my back. We'll just say that.
Gotcha.
So I took this kid down there, and I had turkeys gobbling in his face. He had a handicap. He has a handicap. He's in a wheelchair most of the time. So I took a blind, and I set him up in a blind in his chair, and they were literally right outside the window gobbling into the blind.
Oh.
And his eyes were like golf balls. And we were probably about 15 minutes from this kid's house. And I said, now, Alex, I said, would you rather be doing something like this, or would you rather be on your computer? He said, Mr. Witzel? And I said, Alex, my name is Eric. It's not Mr. Witzel. I said, I'm here for you anytime you want to do this. I said, but now you know where they are. Come do it yourself. I gave him a call. He goes, you're just giving this to me? I said, yeah. To see your eyes light up like that because you didn't know, you had no idea. I said, you're telling me the truth, I'm assuming. 15 minutes from your house, you didn't know these things existed. He said, Eric, Mr. Eric, I had no idea. And I'm like, I don't get it.
It's crazy.
I just don't understand.
Right, and I almost call it like converting somebody over to the good side. That's what I always say.
Yeah,
it's pretty much exactly that, really.
Why? Because we become suburbanites, and and his mom walked in the park every day, so it's not. I mean, I don't know how she didn't hear him. Whatever, I don't know. I have no idea.
I feel like it's one of those things where you got farmers even you asked to hunt a goose feed, and they're like, there's no geese around here. And it's like, I literally just went down the road and seen hundreds of geese land in your field. Like, do you mind if I hunt it? It is just like something that you're not looking for or listening for. So you're kind of just already blocking that out.
Yep.
But there's so much stuff around here. Even when I started like getting into fishing more growing up, we're right off the Detroit River here. And it's like, man, where can I even fish at? Not knowing like how good the walleye fishing, the bass fishing, like every fish you want to catch is right in our back door.
Exactly.
But it's just getting, like you said, like getting the youth out there and getting them familiar with surroundings.
The knowledge, man. You can't teach a dog to sit before unless you can't teach them to retrieve before they sit. I mean,
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Do you guys have steelhead in that Detroit River?
We do. They're kind of far and few between. You got to go, in our like river system with not the Detroit River, but like other smaller river systems inland. Yeah. There's some there. You can go out to like Peely, which is, I don't know. I think it's like hour and a half, 2 hour boat ride from where we're at. Point Peely. I don't know if you ever heard of that. On the Canada side, over there is amazing steelhead fishing. Like I said, every year we have a handful of guys that catch them jigging walleye. But obviously, like anything else, there's a time and a place to be when they're running.
Sure.
So
sure. That's what I was told my dad about. He always wanted to come up when I moved up here. He always wanted to come up and catch the salmon that were in the river. I said, Dad, they're not salmon, they're steelhead. I said, there are, every once in a blue moon, once a season, somebody will catch a salmon that somehow made its way up the river here, but not very common. But I said, I want to chase turkeys that time of year when it's time to fish. Now, there's a very close friend of mine, again, from church, that he will steelhead fish until his arm falls off. And he has caught more steelhead than I will the rest of my life. But he eats, sleeps, and breathes steelhead fishing like I do turkey hunting. He could tell you what flows the river have to be, the barometric pressure, when the best time to catch them, all that stuff. And I'm just like, dude, that's too much for a fish for me.
Do you look pretty deep into like the barometric pressure for like turkeys, or like what kind of stuff do you look at, like weather-wise or moon phase? Like, do you look into that kind of stuff?
I don't look so much in the moon phase, but it was funny when those guys brought up, with the coyote guys, when they brought up barometric pressure for the coyote hunting,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing I thought was absolutely 100% true for turkeys as well. 1,000,000%. I will tell you, one of, besides first light on a good, my dad always wanted a week of 50-degree nights.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he wanted for the peak gobbling. That's what he wanted. But that's your first light and everything. They're going to gobble, etc. But I will tell you, one of the best times to be in the woods for gobbling is immediately after a rain.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
If I can watch a front, if it's a freaking downpour, which, God bless the guy that invented a deer hunting blinds, and people started using them for turkeys. How many turkeys have died because somebody had a blind to sit in while it was pouring down rain?
Right.
Where most guys would have been back in the truck.
Right.
But if I can watch a front and be out there the second that it stops and start calling, if you just listen to after the rain, the songbirds will light up the woods as soon as the rain goes through.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it at your house.
Right.
Just right after that rain, the songbirds they'll do a little before. They kind of shut down during the rain, but as soon as that rain's over, everything wants to sing, including turkeys.
Yeah, it's what kind of blind do you use?
I have an old double bull, one of the original double bulls.
Okay.
And I have two other. One is a Primos, and one is a generic blind. I actually had three because when my dad, my brother, and I would take one of each of the girls, and if it was going to be raining, and when they were younger and couldn't sit still, there's another thing. The guy that invented a blind for a child, how many turkeys died when a child couldn't sit still, but they were in a blind?
Right.
It's a game changer. It's 1,000% a game changer.
And you can't even say kids, because I got some buddies out there, and it's like, dude, just stop moving. Like, what are you doing? I go back to I took my buddy out this year for the first time, and I'm walking him through the woods, or I'm walking him through the field and stuff, and I know where they're roosted at. They're roosted up on this ridge, and I tell him, I say, hey, listen, we're going to be within 150 yards from the entire roost. Like, they are right here. Mm-hmm. So he gets out there, and I'm like, man, I don't know if these are briars or what. Like, I'm whispering to him because, like I said, we're close to the roost. It's close enough to where they're pitching down the other way if they hear us or see us or whatever it may be. And he's like, hey, you want me to just turn my headlight on and check if these are briars? I'm like, dude, are you kidding me right now? Like, I just told you we were this close. What do you think? No, I don't want you to turn your headlight on. Are you nuts?
Yes, exactly.
And I always make fun of Mike, too, because that same field, we woke up late that morning, and here comes Mike walking behind us right down the middle of the field when it's getting light out. And I'm like, dude, at least get on the tree line. I'm doing like hand signals in the dark, trying to get him over the tree line, and he's walking right down the center of the field. And it's like, dude, the tree line, like, hide yourself a little bit instead of walking right in the middle. Are you crazy?
Right. I had a guy that I took out one time that I said, you set up on this tree, I'm going to set up on this tree. And we were about 3 yards apart. Mm-hmm. And he was just like you said, Kyle, he was like a little kid. He was fidgeting and messing and couldn't sit still. And finally, the best I could, I scooted over to him, and I got right up next to his shoulder, and I freaked him out. He's like, oh, he's like, I didn't know you were coming over. And I'm like, exactly.
Yeah, right.
I said, you don't know when that turkey is going to come, so you need to keep your rear end still
Right.
Because sometimes they're going to show up without saying a word.
Right.
So calm down.
That's we ended up buying those Tidewee, I think is how you say it.
Yep.
The 760 blind.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, it was like, I'm looking at this blind. I'm like, there's no way that they can't see us in this blind right now, because you could literally see everything in front of you. Like you're not even sitting in a blind, but it's just black on the backside of it all.
Mm-hmm.
And even that, getting like new turkey hunters out there to see, like to actually see everything besides, just through your shooting holes. I mean, that was a pretty cool experience too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you can put those blinds out in the middle of a field, and for the most part, turkeys don't have, they're birds. They don't have depth perception.
Right.
So they'll rub right up against it a lot of times, depending on where you put your decoys, etc. But people are hesitant to put a blind out in the middle of a hayfield. I put my blind out for my girls in the middle of a pasture field, and next to a hickory tree, and had birds come right into the blind.
So let me ask you that. When is the best time to put a blind in the middle of the field? Like, do you have to put it out there early for turkeys to get used to it?
I've done it the night before. I don't like to put them up that morning. I have. I went in like an hour early and had the blind set up in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
But I would rather do it if I know I'm going to be there tomorrow morning. I'm setting it up either, and I don't even like to do it at the edge of dark, because that's when the birds are flying up.
Right.
So if I know like midday, the day before, this is where I want to be tomorrow, in the middle of the afternoon, I'm going to go put that blind up in the afternoon, especially if it's somewhere I know where I'm going to be the only ones in there and I don't have to worry about it getting stolen. That's
Right.
always a big factor. Because if somebody driving down the road sees a blind next to a hickory tree in a pasture field,
they're grabbing it.
It might get taken. It might be, fair game for, depending on where you're hunting. But if I can, I want it up 24 hours before at least.
Okay.
I know people that leave them up year round as long as they'll last, but they don't hold up. I don't care if it's an old double bull with the old canvas. They won't last for years like a stand will or something like that,
Because I dropped that blind last year in that field. I think after the first week, and we let it like kind of settle down. But there's a couple spots where I've wanted to just throw that blind out in the middle of the field and see what happens, because the birds are roosted right here, and there's nowhere really to hide, and I know they're pitching down right at this spot every single time.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it's one of those things where, even for waterfowl hunting, I'm so anal about everything, and it's just one of those things where I don't want to mess it up and then them birds be completely gone.
Well, here's what I would say to it. You hear all the time the stories of, as soon as that bird saw the blind, he took off and went the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that happens to you, then here's the flip side to that is what my dad always told me. You're talking about a bird who has the brain the size of a pea.
Right.
So, okay, he walked out in the field, he saw your blind, he left. He wanted no part of that blind in the middle of the field. Okay.
Probably a pressure
now
bird.
You have what Strickland calls, from Mossy Oak, he calls it MRI, most recent information. So now you have the most recent information. Don't put that frickin' blind out in the middle of a field because they don't like it. And I think you started to say it, pressured birds. Yeah.
Right.
They don't have the depth perception, but they're also so finicky and so jittery and so nervous. They don't like things out of place. So if you do it and you mess them up, that's one day. As long as they're still hanging around that farm, I might move the blind to the edge of a field and brush it in, but I'm still going to use it for sure.
Because I feel like, like going back to like hunting, like getting one bird off of a farm per year, and not saying that we won't go back and hunt certain fields more than once, but if you don't have pressured birds, I feel like, how are they going to know?
Right. And somebody on that coyote podcast talk about animals and birds being creatures of habit. I just saw something where somebody was listening to something where somebody was talking about that.
They might have.
Turkeys are 85%. They're going to roost in the same area, if not the same tree, on the same farm all the time because they are creatures of habit. People give the turkey a whole. They have great vision. That's what saves them 95% of the time is their vision. Okay, if you can flight that into your favor, and again, I'm just going to say try it. Try decoys in the field.
Right.
Okay, the bird came into the field. He saw the decoys and he left. All right, he doesn't like decoys in the field. How a bird can be so stupid that they can walk right beside a blind in full strut and rub up against it, and you can hear it all the way down the side of a blind, and yet they see a decoy out in the middle of the field and they can pick out the difference. But decoys are so realistic these days.
Oh, it's insane.
I don't know how more people aren't getting shot.
Yeah, it's insane.
Right.
So for that bird to look out in that field and say, nope, I'm not going out there, that's a decoy, and look out there and see a blind, it doesn't look right, I'm not going out there. They're not going to leave the farm because of that. They will be back.
This is a very solid point.
Unless you're talking about if you're setting up on the field edge and it's a property line, then you might be out of luck. But they're going to come back to that field. Go to the field when it's a light rain. If there's a downpour, birds they don't like the fields when there's a downpour. They go out in the field in a light rain because it's not as noisy, so it doesn't make them as nervous, and they can see more predators that might be sneaking up on them. That's why they go to the fields when it rains.
Okay, I was going to say, I misunderstood that. I was going to say, I've always been told, like, they go to the fields when it rains because of the noise and the visibility-wise.
Yep. So, yeah, if I have a rainy day, I'm not going to not go to the woods. I mean, my days I have to hunt are limited.
Right.
So I'm going to go whether I have to take the blind or not. And if it's going to be raining, I'm going to watch a field.
Right.
If it's a farm where I know the birds are and they do frequent a field, that's what I'm going to do.
And that's some of my favorite times, even scout, is those rainy days. People don't want to get out there or whatever. My favorite days are just to scout when it's downpouring for that reason.
Downpours can be tricky because they really don't like heavy rain.
Well, I shouldn't say downpour, but just rain in general.
Yeah. Like a solid 12-hour all-day rain, they're going to be in fields.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, Alyx, do you have any other questions?
No, I don't. Eric, you are a wealth of knowledge of turkey hunting. I've just been sitting, listening, soaking it all in because I'm new to that sport. And holy moly, do you have the information? It was great to listen to you talk about that. You're very passionate about it.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's why I started the call business, was because it was my passion was to make turkey calls, and I've kind of expanded it a little bit. But
that might be a thing for even the
spending
future.
time in the woods. There's nothing that beats the time in the woods either, as far as experience.
Right.
That's what me and Kyle always say. You got to have eyes on everything, whether it's a water, field, or woods.
Yeah, 100%. But that might even be a thing. We're a few months out still, but maybe we kind of introduced the call company. Maybe give it another month or two right before season, get you back on and really hammer you with some nitty gritty turkey talk and get some people amped up even a little bit more.
Love to do it. And somehow if we figure out a way to do it, do like a live thing where we can take questions. I answer questions all the time. Like I said, I eat, sleep, and breathe turkey hunting, and I also will tell you if it's an answer that I don't know for truth, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you something
right
just to make it talk.
Right.
I'm just going to tell you I don't know.
No, 100%.
But there is one thing that's a guarantee in turkey hunting. That's that nothing is guaranteed.
Well, there's something that's guaranteed. You're probably going to get pissed off at a bird or two every single year. That's a guarantee. I'll tell you that right now.
And it sounds like your dad got into the trap of getting. My dad always got on me for focusing on one bird because he was irritating the crap out of me. That's a rabbit hole you can't go down. You got to be able to leave him alone.
It's a very tough thing because then, he was getting into the habit of setting up one way and then the next day that turkey be over where he was setting up the day before. It was just they're dumb, but they're smart at the same time.
Yep.
That's the hard.
That was one of my dad's. They're the smartest dumb bird you'll ever meet.
Yeah, exactly. But was there anything else that you wanted to touch on or anything that we missed that you wanted to say, Eric?
Well, I think there was one other thing with the call lines that I didn't get to, and that was that there is a third and potentially a fourth call line coming, and that will be the third call line I have is called the Divine Line, and that's all figured curly character wood that's just stunning. So there is that clientele that wants a higher end call. I build calls for them as well. So that's the third line I have. And the fourth that I'm thinking about doing, if I don't make it its own line, I might add it to the Divine Line because it's kind of costly. I dye stabilize my own wood. So if I take a piece of curly maple and I dye it, I have 13 different colors that I can dye, and sometimes the different colors will overlap each other. It's just crazy the things that you can do with wood for character, for beauty, for whatever, so I do have that fourth line or that addition to the Divine Line coming with my own dye stabilized wood. So what you do with a wood that's been dye stabilized is it's faulted, it's rotting, it's decaying. So you need to stabilize it or it'll sound dead. It'll be real soft and sound dead. So if you stabilize it with a resin, it gets harder and you can do more things with it to use it.
I don't know. Like you said, there's so many different things you can do with wood. And it's me and Alex even talked about before the podcast that it's all just a very interesting thing on the time that's put in with it all. And it goes back to the turkey call I had from you, just the passion behind it all. Definitely goes a long way.
That's one of the things too that people underrate is they were talking about it on that Coyote podcast is the amount of time you guys put in when you're taking clients out. The amount of time you guys have into your scouting, to your putting in blinds, to your building blinds, to everything you guys do with waterfowl. The thing that gets overlooked for me as a call maker is the time I put into a call.
Right.
It doesn't happen quickly generally. It can, but that's why that call is much cheaper than a high-end call, a Divine Line call, because I spend more time with it.
Literally just took the words right out of my mouth there because people wonder why it's so expensive. And it's like, you realize what I had to do to even get it to this spot?
Yep. That's it.
But no, we'll definitely be in touch, obviously, about the turkey because I would love to pick your brain a little bit more on the turkey hunting and your knowledge and opinions or whatever it may be behind turkey hunting here in the very near future.
Fantastic.
Is there I know you dropped it before the podcast, but where people can reach you, your social media or anybody that you want to kind of shout out or anything?
I'm going to give a shout out to everybody who's ever bought a call from me because they've supported my business and my passion. Two, I'm at Firebolt Game Calls on Instagram or Facebook, and I'm working on a webpage currently. I don't have one yet, but I am working on that. If anybody's interested, they want to DM me a message, I can get into more details with a telephone number or, I do custom orders. I do take what I have. It's what I have made right now. I can do it pretty much any way you want.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I very much appreciate you coming on. It's been an absolute
appreciate you having me.
Pleasure talking to you. Hopefully your first podcast wasn't as bad or nerve-wracking as you thought it was going to be.
No, not at all.
Good.
Like I said, I had to tell myself, look, you've been out there on stage in front of 500 people, so why should being on the phone with somebody be so difficult? When you can talk anybody's ear off. So.
Right. Like me and Kyle always say, we're just, you know what? It's just a bunch of guys in a garage bullshitting.
There you go.
All it is. All it is.
I can get with that.
So,
and anybody else should know too, if they're in the Ohio area listening, or even if you're in Michigan and you want to come to Ohio, my shop is always open. I just had 2 people come in the last month to my shop to see how a call was built.
That's awesome.
I don't care. I have nothing to hide. You're more than welcome to come see my process, come see how a call is built, start to finish. Just check things out. Just like you said, just sit in the shop and bullshit. It doesn't matter to me. I'm an open book.
Well, if I'm ever down that way, I will be sure to be stopping in and seeing you.
Sweet.
So.
Yep. Same here.
But no,
all right, bud.
Like I said, I appreciate it, Eric. Thank you everybody for listening. I do want to shout out, like always, GK calls that the whole crew runs, Gator decoys, and Migra ammunition, SX decoys. Like I said, and I will always say, we stand behind companies that we trust in and that are amazing people. And that's why, again, it was such a pleasure talking to you, Eric, tonight. Just the passion behind everything that you do. But appreciate everybody tuning in today. And until next time, thanks, guys.